Welcome back to Horses of Courses. I'm Tinia.
I'm Suzanna.
And this is your March episode. It feels like just the other day we did the January episode starting our second year podcasting, and here we are. It's already spring. It's kind of wild.
Isn't it like 5 days till spring?
Well, the 21st. It's close.
That'd be 5 days, right?
Well, I don't know. I don't know what it is today. The 17th.
Oh, no. Okay, that'd be 4 days.
So we are sitting here actually at the airport.
Lovely view.
It is. It's nice. It's Louisville Airport. We're headed to Texas for the ASPCA Right Horse Conference, and this is the nicest restaurant in a airport I've been to. We have this whole corner to ourselves with these leather sofas and seats.
It's warm enough for me.
And we've got a very long wait till we board.
Yes.
Anyway, so we're headed to this conference. I'm going there to speak on euthanasia, and I think that's really super relevant to kind of a controversy currently unfolding on Facebook. But we're going to save that for next month,
right.
My birthday month. We'll talk about it for my birthday next month.
Oh, you want to talk about your birthday?
And euthanasia and my birthday, but that's for next month.
Are we going to euthanize you on your birthday?
No, when I get much older, if my joints don't get any better and the equiox don't help. So I think we're going to start this month's episode off on something you're the expert on. I've never seen this particular thing in person.
Yeah.
What's that?
The Madigan procedure.
The Madigan procedure, also known as like something you do when you have a dummy foal.
Yes, something you do when you have a dummy foal. You want me to tell the story?
Tell the story.
Share the story. Well, a friend of mine's barn flooded, and she had a mare that was imminently due, and she said, could you please take her because I'm afraid that this foal's going to be born and drown. So I took her, and the next night, not the first night, but the next night, she dropped her foal at 6:30 in the morning when I went in to use the bathroom and get something to eat. I came back out, and the foal was out, and it was apparent she hadn't laid down, and he was a dummy. So
explain that. Like, what told you he was a dummy?
Well,
like, some people may not even get what that means.
They're kind of stuporous. They don't make any attempt at all to talk to their moms or get up, or they're just kind of...
sucking reflex.
No sucking reflex. They're just kind of dumb, really. So we milked the mare and tried to feed him a bottle, and he really wasn't even a very good swallower. And the veterinarian thought that because she hadn't laid down, maybe he'd been dropped on his head and he had some brain swelling. So she sent us some meds to give him to reduce the brain swelling, and none of that really helped. But I had written about the Madigan procedure because I'd watched it on TV on a veterinary show the week before on Heart of Phoenix, and that dinged in my head after we fussed with this foal for like 3 hours. And I took Morgan and my daughter in the house, and we watched the video, and they said that it was stupid, but if we tried it and it didn't work, we lost 15 minutes, so what the hey. So we watched the video. We put the ropes on him wrong at first, and we had to start all over again. And when we got him on him right, as soon as we started squeezing, he dropped down and went kind of comatose, which is what the video said he would do. We waited the prescribed amount of time, and when we took the ropes off of him, he popped up, started yelling for his mom and trying to figure out how to nurse, and he was fine after that. It was crazy.
And he's a total, like, this is a foal that you know where he is now, and
Yeah.
he's totally fine.
Well, yeah, my daughter broke him when he was 3 years
later.
old, so
Yeah.
he grew into a big, healthy foal. Not the brightest bulb on the planet, but an amiable, nice fellow.
And so when you wrote about this, I mean, it circulates, every time you share it on Heart of Phoenix, it circulates widely, but haven't we heard numerous times where people have reached out and this, having read that,
Done it for their own dummy
and
foals.
saved them?
Yeah, and save them. And it also works for calves and puppies also.
Yeah, I've seen it on various things since that time with calves. And the theory is that they're not squeezed properly in the birth canal. Is
Right.
that kind of the theory?
Which, if she doesn't lay down, gravity can make them fall out too fast, and they pass through before they get enough squeeze.
So, if somebody is hearing this and they want to know how to learn to do it, because we don't have a Heart of Phoenix video showing how to do this, obviously. Where is there a particular place that you remember where it's done properly?
Yeah, YouTube. Dr. Madigan did a couple videos demonstrating how to tie the ropes and things on YouTube. That's where we figured it out, was on YouTube.
Well, and I think, so what, do you remember what is the outcome if you don't do this procedure? Do they tend to die? They don't thrive? Or does some of them make it and they're not quite right? Or what do we...
A lot of them make it, but it takes weeks and weeks and weeks for them to wake up and become somewhat normal. And in the meantime, people are bottle feeding them. They wind up with pneumonia because it's hard to bottle feed a foal without giving them pneumonia.
They aspirate.
Right,
yeah.
They aspirate. Plus, it's so labor intensive. I mean, if you're going to bottle feed a foal, you have to be out there like every 2 hours to bottle feed a foal. Because if it's a dummy, it can't stand up and use the igloo. What's that thing called? The igloo cooler mama.
Yeah.
Or
or
they can't bucket feed if they're a dummy foal. So you're basically stuck with this really labor intensive project.
Right. So it's something I've never seen. But is that the only time that you've had to do it, or was there one more time? Oh, that's right.
And it did help Razor, but then ultimately that wasn't so good.
Well, it wasn't so good because he was born with
liver cancer,
which is kind of wild. But it did make the difference. Had he not had the liver cancer, that would have been a second foal that would have survived as a result. Yeah. So if you all hear a bunch of background noise, guys, we are at the airport. So. Anyway,
really interesting.
I think if you're breeding or you have rescued a mare that's going to foal, whatever the case, if you have a mare that's going to foal, this is a procedure you really need to be aware of.
Yes.
And know how to do.
Yes. For your own sake as well as the baby's.
Yeah. So, after that, we wanted to tell you all we've got spring coming. And so, Heart of Phoenix, the thing that if you want to help us out this month and donate a product or funding directly toward the purchase of a needed product, it's deworming time. Or as some people say, worming time.
Worming time.
Worming time.
I gave my horse some wormer today.
I wormed it. Please don't put worms in your horse.
You know what, though? I used to say that, too.
I did, too. I said it. Honestly, listen. Here's the thing.
I've seen you type it before, not very long ago.
I have, in my memories, had memories show up on Heart of Phoenix from like 2012, where I wrote worming.
Did you go back and fix it?
Yes. So no one will ever know. I'm telling you all now. But anytime it shows up in my memories. They need to know
we're not perfect. We preach at them so much, they need to know we mess up too.
No, Suzanna, we want them to think we're perfect.
No.
Perfect.
No.
We're happy, perfect people. Under a shiny
You're a
plastic
happy person.
steeple. No, not
You're not
particularly.
A happy person.
No, I'm morose. But a way you can keep me from being as morose as I would usually be is to donate dewormer. And we specifically would like Quest Plus, but we could take Panicure as well. Safeguard, same thing, different brand. Either of those are useful. If you can't find Quest Plus, even Quest is okay. So if you want to donate, you can visit our website at wvhorserescue.org, go to the donate option, and there's many ways you can give. And you can also, if you visit there, you can see our mailing address, and you can purchase dewormer and mail it to our P.O. Box, which is P.O. Box 81, Shoals, West Virginia, 25562.
Maybe we'll make it easy on them, put it in the comments later.
We could do that. And also, you can also go to our Chewy wish list. Just type in Heart of Phoenix and Chewy wish list into Google, and it'll come right up. And I think we keep Quest Plus on our wish list. So that's something we can always use.
Yes. All the worms.
Now we have story time. Story time is here.
Oh, dear.
So this is probably maybe my favorite story.
Really?
My favorite rescue story, yeah. So this was this story took place in Boone County, West Virginia.
It was cold.
It was in February.
The truck was sliding backwards down the hill on the icy road, and Nelson had to jump out and switch me seats really well because I couldn't get it to stop.
That was scary, and I was in the police cruiser car, and it was sliding all over the place.
Yeah.
Because we were driving up to an active mine site. So there's so many things. So this story goes back several years before. So see, this was 2018. We did this, I think. Yeah, it was 2018, February 2018, I'm pretty sure. And I had been hearing about these horses and posting about these horses for about 3 to 4 years. And it was a herd of horses that had originally been put out there on this mine land by an owner. I guess the owner had passed away.
Well, there were 2 mules, too.
And there was a couple of mules, and they had been out there for some years, breeding and coming off the strip mine and getting in people's yards. And finally, the sheriff of the county said, I want these horses out of here. Somebody had wrecked and gotten hurt when they had almost hit one of the horses. And finally, the law enforcement was like, enough's enough. Because local people were aggressively wanting the horses to stay.
Well, they were hungry, and some of the local people were complaining, though, because they were tearing down their chicken coops trying to get the bedding out of the chicken coops.
And the herd stallion had gotten in and bred somebody's mare.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And so it was split, but the people who were opposed to the horses being moved were kind of aggressively opposed. So we were getting death threats and everything when we said we were going to go in and move this herd.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it was thousands of acres, and you didn't know exactly where the horses were. So we sent some folks out to kind of
do reconnaissance.
Yeah, to see where the horses were, and as best we could tell, like the local people ran the horses back onto the mine the day before we came. So it made it a lot harder when we arrived to even find them. But so we had a huge number of horse people come out with us because we knew it was going to be a big undertaking. I think there were nine horses total, horses and mules. So we get out there. We have Adam Black, Nelson Detweiler, Raven,
Tiffany, she was on Tonks.
Tiffany, James Berthasol, and Jess from Smoke Rise. So here we meet out there. We converge, and they tell us the mine company says, you're not going out here. We're not going to let you out here. And I'm talking to the deputy that meets us, and I'm like, listen, the sheriff told us to come out. The West Virginia Department of Agriculture came out. The news was out there. And here we had all those that West Virginia Department of Ag brought all their panels for us to use. And here that we show up in the morning in the snow, February, they say, you're not going out there. And I remember going over there thinking, gosh, Tinia, you've had all these people come to round these horses up. What cost these people out of pocket have put out, and we're not even going to be able to get out and even find the horses. And I remember going over to the mine guy, the mine boss, and he said, they're not going to let you go out. I've called the main guy, and he says no. And I'm standing there with the deputy, and I said, well, whether you say we can or can't, we're going through that gate, and we're going to drive through it, and that's it. And he's laughing, and I'm like, I'm not being funny. Like, we're going up there. And so I talked to the sheriff, and I was like, you're going to have to call somebody. And it was about 20 minutes go by, and he comes over and goes, they said, we can just give you a safety orientation. We're going to let you go.
And we had to sign papers.
And sign waivers.
Because I had to sign the paper for Raven.
Yeah, we had to sign this waiver, and we had a safety brief. And then here we go, then sliding back down the mountain.
Gosh.
And we get out there, and all the people are on horseback, and they split up, and they're like trying to find the horses over so much land.
Well, me and Nelson and Alex and Raven drove around the other side of the mountain while the other group stayed on your side of the mountain, and they went up the back of the mountain. And
so here I am, a couple of hours go by,
and Nelson lost his phone out there. Me and Alex found it buried in the snow.
And so were you on horseback?
Me and Alex were down at the bottom waiting at the truck.
But a lot of people were on horseback. I'm at the top of this mountain, like looking over all of this land. And I think to myself, Tinia, you're crazy. Why did you bring these people out here thinking you could just find this herd of horses? And even if they find them, what does that matter? How could you ever catch them? This could never work. How awful. And I'm just like looking over the hill, and we're about to give up. Time's going by, and people just keep looking at me like, what are we doing? And I'm like, I don't know. And then over the walkie-talkie, we hear Nelson and Raven, and they say, we've got them down here.
Can you bring up a bucket of food?
And so here we are now on top of the mountain. They have them down in a valley. We're trying to talk to them to figure out where they are, and the mine guy understands the shack that they've got him in. Like there's this little shed, and he understood where that was. And so we have to wind our way off the mountain and get everybody who's not up there to start setting up the panels in this massive area where the horses can't see it. And here we plan, we say...
And Alex carried a 5-gallon bucket of food clear back there to that shack.
I don't even remember him going, but Nelson tells me on the radio, he said, Tinia, only you come down here. And it was a long walk. It was a long haul. Like, I don't know, what would you say, half a mile maybe?
It took us a long time to get back there.
He said, don't let nobody else walk up here to us. And you come up here and I'm going to tell you what I want you to do. So I make this trek on foot. I get to him, I see him, and I'm like, I cannot believe this. And he had lassoed the mare, the old mare, who was halter broke and had been ridden years prior. So she was
And he had
handled.
Raven parked with Luna sitting in the gateway kind of a thing, being a blocker.
And her mare was in heat, and it was kind of helping
Yeah.
that stallion stick around so the horses wouldn't leave their main mare. So they're just standing there quiet. He goes, I'm going to bring this mare down, and you have people up in just so along the way to get behind this herd and push them on into that round pen.
We were hiding behind hills of dirt and stuff.
Yeah, it was just a gorge, and here I go back, and I'm like, okay, so-and-so, you go up here, and you go up here, don't you dare do anything until they get by you and fall in behind them. And everybody's phone had died. The cold and the amount of time had went by. We don't have any video footage of Nelson coming in with that mare into that pen and those horses just being pushed all in there and the mules. It was the most beautiful thing. But here's the other thing. The Department of Ag guy was standing down there with me as we're waiting for them to come on. And he goes, this ain't going to work. This is the stupidest bunch of junk. And then here came Nelson and them coming like man from Snowy River. It was the most fantastic thing to me that we've ever done.
It really was fortuitous Luna was in heat, though, because that stallion was all
going,
about it.
Going where she was going to go. And there wasn't a single horse that had ever been touched but that mare. I mean, we come to find out as time went on. And so at the time, we didn't have, the rescue wasn't big enough to take all these ferals. And so we did not originally accept them. The folks who helped us round up, like Nelson took a big dun mare. James Berthasol at Smoke Rise took 2.
Adam took one of the mules, I think.
Adam took the a mule and the big stallion, Boone. He called him Boone.
Yeah.
And we ended up with Detson eventually within just a few months, the youngest colt in the herd. And he ended up going through the ATFO a few years later when he was old enough. But if you go to our blog, and we have photos of it, but I have just wished that we could have a video of them coming down that road through that valley.
We have some video, though, because Sarah Dooley was walking behind us video when we were carrying the big bucket of grain.
Yeah, but I think there's nothing of the actual them coming into the round pen.
Not into the round pen.
Yeah.
But there is some of them coming down the road and us popping out from behind the dirt.
I don't even remember that.
Yeah, there is, because Sarah Dooley was filming that.
It was fantastic. And we have great, after pictures of the group. People had a chance to charge their phones, I guess. But I remember that law enforcement guy and the Department of Ag guy was like, I'd have never believed in my wildest imaginations this would have worked out. And honestly, it kind of set us up to think it would always be that easy.
Yeah.
Not that was super easy. It was pretty labor intensive, but the fact that it worked out the way it did was kind of awesome. So that, I think, is probably my absolute favorite rescue story. The only thing I wish is that we had been the size we are now so that we could have taken all of the horses, and Ben who oversaw that, but it ended up working out, even though we'd had literal death threats. As time went on, that community was pretty thankful that the horses were safe and not out there anymore, but it just took some time to kind of process that, I guess. So, I think it's time for Ding-a-ling of the month. And we had a different plan for Ding-a-ling of the month, but as we were getting ready here to start talking, Suzanna showed me a comment under one of her reels on the Heart of Phoenix page, and we think that probably for this month is the better one.
Gosh, that was so dumb. I made this video talking about how people trot out these excuses for why they're not going to change anything for their horses. And one of the comments was, my horse is thin because blah 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 or whatever. And the person commented under that, I'm so tired of people making these comments. You can't make these comments about humans, so why do you make these comments about horses?
Right.
Like, we can't call horses fat or skinny or...
Because we don't want to be talked to that way ourselves.
Yeah.
I couldn't. I couldn't.
What? Anthropomorphizing much?
Oh, I can't. Well, and that goes into kind of the other topic. There currently, there's this situation on social media where... and I think, again, we'll talk about it at length next month, but there's a situation where a foal desperately needs euthanasia and the rescue's not providing that. And in those comments, you hear a lot of that. You wouldn't do this to a person. Horses aren't humans, and we have to advocate for the horse that can't make sure it's fed enough, and we have to advocate for the horse whose life is going to be ruined by being turned into an obese animal, who then will have lifelong health issues. And the fact that a human would come to a reel that is trying to set a standard of care and suggest that because you don't look at a person who's in control of what they eat or do not eat and say, hey, you need to feed your horse better, because you wouldn't say, hey, maybe you should eat a little more, is wild.
But if that is a parent and the child is way too skinny and the doctor does the well-child visit, the doctor's going to be like, listen, we got to figure out how to get some more calories in this kid.
Well, you would hope. You would hope a doctor would.
You would hope.
You would hope. Or a teacher or somebody would look in and say, hey, something's wrong here.
Which is which is a better comparison than saying we can't tell humans that they're too fat or too skinny, because that we can't tell adults that they're too fat or too skinny who are responsible for themselves, but we can certainly tell the adult caretakers of people who are not able to be responsible for themselves that their charge is too fat or too skinny.
Well, somebody would say you couldn't, but you could if you were a caregiver. Like if you or you're a healthcare professional, it certainly is your job. And we're an equine rescue, so it is our job.
I mean, when I was pregnant and throwing
our volunteer job.
When I was pregnant and throwing up all 9 months, the doctor looked at me and he said, listen, I don't know what we're going to do because I know how sick you are, but you've got to figure out how to get some more calories or your baby's not going to be okay.
Yeah, and what if he'd have just been like, well, your feelings would be hurt by this, and we just won't mention it. Though, again, it's irrelevant. But what I would say about it is, what is appropriate for a human has nothing to do with a horse. You cannot compare them. To do so is asinine at best. So we will always, as an equine rescue, continue to say, here's what you need to do or look into if your horse is struggling with weight and if your horse is too heavy. And here's the thing, in horses, it is an excuse that we always hear. Why is your horse too heavy? And they'll tell you a reason. The truth is, you're likely not managing it well. And when your horse is too thin, you're likely not feeding it enough. Those generally are truths, whether it's convenient or not.
What if we'd have kept that 25-year-old bay thoroughbred mare alive because she was trying to live,
right?
But it wasn't the right thing to do. She didn't have any teeth.
Yeah, so we took this very aged bay thoroughbred mare in body score.
Ready for that chicken salad sandwich?
Not quite, but soon.
I'm not here to rush people.
So this mare was maybe a body score of 1.
Well, Dr. Hughes scored her at a 1.
A 1, okay,
yeah.
at best. And she, being aged, there are people who absolutely would use the argument, would you kill your grandmother? Would you just put your grandmother to sleep when she gets old and skinny? And because people truly do argue that way, animals pay a really high price. They pay a really high price. It is not up to Suzanna and I to decide whether an old person is thriving or not. They can speak to you if they're with it enough to tell you. And you know what? I've known enough elderly people to hear what they say. And as my dad got to be in his mid-80s, what he told me every day was, I want to get out of here. I'm tired of living. It hurts to be alive.
Well, he was related to you. So.
He was very morose also.
Morose.
And so adults have the ability to advocate for themselves, and horses aren't humans. So it just comes back to, it's not a question of if you receive an elderly horse who's at the end of their life and you make a call that euthanasia is right, it is irrelevant what would happen with a human. It is not the same. It is totally irrelevant.
And it was the right thing to do for her, even though she was still fighting very hard. But when we anesthetized her and looked in her mouth, her premolars and her molars were absolutely gone.
Well, and that whole fighting, it's not even that they're not fighting to live because they want to be alive. They are fighting biologically to survive, as animals will. As animals will. You could cut their legs off and they would try to make it. Frankly, I've seen animals with legs removed, both freshly through accidents, out on strip mines, or long-term, destroyed limbs. And, you'll get those, what I hate it the most. There's life in their eyes. Well, they're alive, so their eyes look alive. It's the craziest stuff, and that is irrelevant to what is right.
It's hard, though. We have to concede that it is hard. I mean, we've done it so much that it's not quite so hard for us anymore. But if you're a normal person, don't think we're unfeeling. It's hard. It was hard for me to put that mare to sleep. I felt bad to do it, but it was the right thing to do.
Well, and I think one of the things that makes it easier isn't that I'm desensitized to doing it. It is that we've been through so much rescue. We see the other side, and we have waited before, and we know what a mistake that is.
Right.
And that's it. I can't forget the times I didn't make a decision soon enough, and I never feel bad for the times I made the decision before things were terrible. So I'm pretty comfortable making these calls today because of the history and having been too late more times than I wish I was.
Yeah.
Which kind of rolls in, I think, to our main topic this month. And this is a quote that I've seen on Facebook. I don't know who to attribute it to. We've mentioned it before. But you cannot ever rule out pain.
No.
And so that, I think, makes a lot of sense to use that statement in horses. You cannot, or in animals, but in horses, you cannot rule out pain. You know what you can do in human beings? Rule out pain. I can tell you if I hurt. So that's why you start right there at that base level. That's where there's no comparison. An animal cannot tell you. Sometimes it can show you. Many times they don't show you. Or many times the way that they show you, we interpret it as an attitude.
Yes.
Or lack of training.
That's just a grouchy mare.
Yeah, she's just grouchy. He's hateful. Oh, he just, he hasn't, he still needs some more training to get him to do this or to get him to do that. Oh, he bucks just because he's feeling good. There's all kinds of things we tell ourselves. And a lot of the time, the truth is pain could be at the root of it. Now, I get it. You talk to enough horse people, you'll get a few eye rolls when you say that. And a lot of it's unfair. Sometimes it is true. Do I believe that there are horses that absolutely just, this is not for me, I don't want to do it, I don't want you here, and they're not hurting? Sure, but we can't be sure that that's what's happening. You can't rule out that pain could be at the root of it, even though I can believe sometimes pain is not. So
we have to give them the benefit of the doubt.
I do think
if
we
they're
have to.
adamant, then we have to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, I do think we have to. And so one of the ways that Dr. Walker, our main vet, he will say, put the horse on Butte or Equiox for, in Equiox's case, 5 to 7 days, see if the behavior totally goes away. And that still doesn't rule it out. But it helps you get an idea of if the behavior dramatically decreases in 7 days on Equiox, that would indicate to me that there's pain. If the behavior doesn't, then I still could say they're anticipating it happening and hurting, and they haven't quite arrived at the point where they accept that they're not going to hurt. So even then, you can't rule it out, but I think you can confirm pain. That's what you can do. You can't rule out pain, you can confirm it. I think a good
Sometimes it takes a lot of links to confirm the pain.
well, and
you got to stand on your head, click your heels 3 times, wave your magic wand, pray.
and a horse that shows us that is Nissa. So Nissa's been with the rescue since I think 2021, and she's been adopted twice and returned, each time for behaviors under saddle, and she bucks.
Yes.
We have had her ridden by our trainer at Mulligan, Kaylin Mullahan. She doesn't buck, and she's been good for Kaylin. So we have felt like saddle fit or operator error was involved. We sent her up to Maribeth Pepler at MB Equine in Indiana. And kind of what was the overview? What was Maribeth saying that she's encountering? Not even trying to ride her yet.
She couldn't turn her head to the right nearly as well as she could turn her head to the left. I don't even know. There was a lot of different little niggling things that made you know that there was something big picture.
And she sent the video of the body worker like working on her back. One side had a much more dramatic reaction.
Yes, very clearly.
Than the other side. And every trainer and horse person doesn't go through all that. And also, we've had chiropractors work on her and seen some improvement and gotten her to where we weren't seeing reaction. So even if you yourself think you're not seeing a pain reaction, if you're having any behavioral thing, I think it's worth having a second, third, fourth set of eyes from different backgrounds look at the horse. And really, if you just assume and that because you can't see it, that it isn't there, you really do the horse a disservice, I think.
Sometimes we really have to find somebody who really digs and digs and digs and digs.
That said, I think this comes back to what we were talking about before of like, don't act like horses are humans. You do have to accept that if a horse is continually behaving in a way that is dangerous and painful and you can't find out how or why, that you may never find it, and the horse isn't served by your continued exploration if they're not comfortable. And we have had instances where we've had to say, I don't know exactly what's wrong, but
clearly something's
wrong, and I don't know whether it's pain or behavioral without pain, but this horse is unsafe, or this horse is miserable and we don't know why. And we need to make some kind of decision so that this horse isn't moving forward.
But we don't make those kind of decisions in 2 weeks usually either.
No, and we don't make them without multiple experts weighing in. And I will say, when we've made those decisions, we have sent quite a few horses for necropsies. We've really never had any good answers. Remember Willow that had narcolepsy. And with equines in narcolepsy, it tends to be that there's some kind of pain preventing them from sleeping as they should. And then their body's just kind of shutting down, having these episodes. And we had her at Root and Riddle. Dr. Reed, the leading neurologist in equine in the world, as best I know, didn't really have any thoughts. But the mare, we couldn't find an answer or a way to solve it. And so this was many years ago. We euthanized her, which really hurt my feelings. She was a sweet, lovely mare.
Mm-hmm, she was.
But
and people are like, oh, they just fall asleep. Why are you euthanizing for just fall asleep? Well, when you see one fall asleep into a concrete water trough and tear its whole face off, like I did my mare at work that got narcolepsy, it's not just falling asleep, because they fall asleep and they hurt themselves.
Well, and there is some reason. It's not just like humans. It's different than human narcolepsy.
Right.
As best research seems to indicate, the narcolepsy is an onset for the horse's body making up for the rest it's afraid to have because it's hurt and disadvantaged in some way.
Well, but when we took her, the first thing they wanted us to try was moving her entirely to a new setting, because they thought
she felt safer.
They thought maybe the coyotes that were so prevalent there were somehow making her not feel safe enough to sleep. So they had us try that for a month first, but that didn't work.
Well, and I've heard take them out of the herd. Maybe they're being bullied too much.
And occasionally that does work.
Yeah. So anyway, that one with that mare, we sent her for a necropsy and we never had an answer.
No.
I think in the vein of wanting to learn, we have many times sent a horse for that, to just see what did we miss. And it's hard to not have the answer,
We like to have the answer.
I like to have the. Gosh, anybody who listens to this knows we do.
We like to have the
And
answer.
but you can't always have it, and you can really cause a lot of harm to a horse by continuing to search for the answer and not knowing when enough is enough. And I can't tell you, and I'm not going to pretend I can tell you. And it's a gray area. How long you look, there are many factors that go into that. But you do need to have a point where you say, okay, I have to rest in the fact I've done due diligence. I cannot find an answer. The horse deserves an outcome that's humane. And my hope is that you find the answer when you're looking for it. And so,
it's a fixable answer.
Right.
Would also be nice.
And
Like with Mardi Gras and don't chop off her foot because it needs to be that length.
well, and whether it was, I mean, that, well, you tell me a little bit more about that, but there was this there was this Mustang that one foot just didn't match the other.
Right. And it drove the farriers crazy.
And they would want to make the foot match.
And every time they'd make it match, she'd be so lame, and she'd buck, and she'd carry on. And finally we took her to Root and Riddle, and she had limb length disparity, which means one was shorter than the other. And they said, stop chopping off her foot. She needs that. It's like a orthotic shoe.
Because, here's the thing with that horse, because Dr. Walker saw her too, and you couldn't even see the lameness. You could only hear it in the cadence of how she moved.
Right.
Isn't that the horse that he said that about? Like he's an excellent visual lameness vet. But he's like, I can hear it faintly. So it wasn't some major, limb difference.
It was to her.
Yeah, to her. But I mean, it wasn't. Well, I don't want people to think we kept a horse with a leg that was too short.
Well, no, you
forward.
couldn't visually tell.
No, it was a very slight
They
thing.
They brought out some instrument. I don't even remember what they called it, and did all these measurements and put it into a computer, and it was off by it wasn't even 3/4 of an inch.
Yeah. So.
But it was enough.
But it would have been easy if you had taken a traditional approach to that mare to say it was an attitude. And the trainer who messed with her there originally started her said it was just an attitude.
Right.
But they didn't know enough to know any better. We didn't believe that it was an attitude.
She was a sourpuss.
Yeah, a sourpuss. We never believed that. Both you and I did, I will say in that instance. We were like, there's something wrong here. So be willing to...
It took a year to get her foot back to where it needed to be.
Yeah. So... With that said, what I would just caution you against is saying something about a horse that's about its behavior that assumes it doesn't hurt. You cannot know it doesn't hurt. And frankly, in my experience, I'm far more apt to believe that they hurt than not.
Yes.
So...
And you can't say, well, look at him running out there in the field. He must not hurt, because you just can't.
Well, I think some of the reasons you can't, I think they have a lot of adrenaline in a herd setting. They have a lot of adrenaline, and they can choose exactly how they move, and you may not know they're guarding what's hurting.
Right.
But they are. And it's different when you put an apparatus on someone. For instance, I'll give you a good example. I have a very rare connective tissue disorder, and you can't look at me and tell anything is wrong with me.
I can.
Well, that's a different
There's
kind
a
of
lot wrong with you.
I go to the gym. I'm very strong. I do heavy weight training, and
she's a big strapping farm
I'm
gal.
a big strapping lumberjack. But I'm debilitated by just wearing a bra that has a racer back. I cannot handle on my body a racer back bra.
It makes her very fussy.
It hurts up my neck. It makes pain radiate up my whole neck, down my spine, across my back. I can't sleep with my arms, not straight. These are things I have the choice to then not wear that racerback bra that makes me feel like I want to take a car and run it to a river.
Well, who could hold you down to put you in one anyway?
Well, very few people.
Maybe Christian.
I own a few, and sometimes I'll be like, oh, it'll be okay today. I put it on, I get down the road, and I'm like, I've got to get this off.
I've got to get this off.
But that is something you can't look at me and decide, well, that's not pain. Well, I can tell you, well, it is. And it seems like a ridiculous thing. You don't know that I have a connective tissue disorder. You don't know what that feels like to me. So and if you're hearing this, whoever you are, there's probably something with you where you've had some intense discomfort. We're just looking at you in your day-to-day. People may not know. If
I wear blue jeans that come up over my rib cage, man, it makes me pissed off.
So those are, and these are small things. Imagine if somebody, could put the racerback bra on me and then tighten it up at their will, like however tight they wanted it.
And then make you work.
And then make me work, cannot do it. So have the same mercy on the horse that you'd want somebody to have on you in those
Now,
settings.
listen to us idiots. We're telling them on the one hand, stop humanizing your horses.
Well,
They're
we're
not
very-
too fat. And
right.
we're like, what? But think of how humans.
Yeah. Well, in that I will say pain, everything can feel pain. Everything can feel pain. The human can share it with you, the horse can't. So in the same we are saying the horse can't tell you. So you have to understand that because they can't tell you, you have to assume pain can be present if there's a behavioral issue.
Right.
Now, I don't mean rude. Let's go say,
How do you like that? Did you see that video where they put a muzzle on that horse to saddle it the other
oh,
day?
that was so awful.
In cross ties and put a muzzle
And thought it
on
was funny.
And thought it was funny.
Yeah, because it was trying to bite them.
Yeah.
I
I'm
wanted it to get the muzzle
what
off and
is
get a hold
wrong
of
with
them and
you?
just shake them till the life was out of them, as Mama would say.
But they did not even realize that horse was screaming, "You're hurting me."
Yeah, no, that was awful. Some of those things, like because you can't rush in and save the day and fix it, I can't hardly stand to see.
It was terrible.
But
You shouldn't have to muzzle your horse to saddle it.
it should go without saying, but it probably doesn't. So anyway, we are next month. We have Equine Affair. If you're listening to this and you didn't hear last month's episode, the 10th, April 10th through 13th.
We have Gentle Beginnings before that.
Well, we have the Feral Horse Clinic with Justin Hafner with Riding Far up in Charlestown, West Virginia. Gentle Beginnings. We're going to take 2 feral horses up, and Justin is going to work through a 2-day clinic. You can purchase tickets to attend if you are with a rescue. You are able to attend at no cost. So reach out.
A 501c3, right?
Yes, you have to
Yeah.
actually,
You have to be a 501c3.
be a nonprofit. You can attend without any cost to the clinic.
We've got a bunch of Fraggles coming.
Oh, and we have all these. So whippersnappers, we were pretty sparse on babies for the whippersnappers for ATFO. All
But
of
we
a sudden,
found a bunch.
They're just raining from the skies, and we're naming them after Fraggle Rock because Suzanna and I love Fraggle Rock.
Yep.
Um,
Dance cares away. Bum bum.
Worries for another day.
Let the Fraggles play. Bum bum. Down on Fraggle Rock.
I hope somebody plays the song in their freestyle.
I bet someone will.
Well, I'm
Probably
gonna
the one that
encourage
gets
it.
the baby named Fraggle.
I'm gonna
Because we actually have
encourage
a
it.
baby named Fraggle.
So you can look for those babies being posted on the Appalachian Trainer Face-Off page. Gentle Beginnings at the very
They
last
look kind
week.
of fraggly right now.
They do. Somebody was like, they look so healthy, those 2. And I was like, I don't know what health looks like to you, but that doesn't look like it. We have, so Gentle Beginnings at the very end of the month in Charlestown, West Virginia. That's an event on our page. You can see the new babies on the Appalachian Trainer Face-Off page. It'll be in Whippersnappers. ATFO starts the very last day of April. And before that, we have the Equine Affair adoption event. And that is 9th through 13th in Columbus, Ohio. Until next time, I'm Tinia.
I'm Suzanna.
And we're horses of courses.